In Washington, this is what a leaderless Republican Party looks like. It's a party with no willingness to pass their president's proposed bailout, but no comprehensive counterproposal of their own either. There was that one thing last week about a blue ribbon commission and more deregulation. More deregulation? But even that petered out by this week. On the other side, the Democrats, in a playing against type reversal akin to cats barking and dogs purring, appear to have their house in relative order. Even the Democratic no voters on yesterday's bailout vote appear to agree in principle with their leadership's expressed desire for oversight, CEO pay limits, deposit insurance, infrastructure investment, and on and on. This is one of those times in politics when something is going to pass and get signed into law. The president himself is crying crisis. Democrats control both houses of Congress, and they've right now got more leverage than they have ever had over Republicans and over this president. So, should they be bending over backwards to pass something that gets a majority of Republicans to vote for it too, so no one gets the blame? Or should they be going for purist progressive gold here, channeling that money to homeowners instead of Wall Street, re-regulating Wall Street, a New Deal-style economic stimulus plan that puts Americans to work rebuilding our own country? Congressman Dennis Kucinich is one of the Democrats who voted against the bailout bill yesterday. Congressman Kucinich, many thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Kind of raises the question of what a Democrat is. I mean, think of the basic principle of this bailout, that we would borrow money from banks, because that's the only way we're going to get the $700 billion. We borrow money from banks to give to banks so that they can give us $700 billion worth of toxic debt from all over the world. I don't know. I couldn't vote for this, and unless they have some dramatic change in what they're doing that helps homeowners, depositors, pensioners, I'm not going to vote for it, and I think a lot of others will not either. Well,
what kind of dramatic change would it have to be for you to, for them to earn your support? Are you against a rescue or a bailout no matter what, or are there elements of this that could be changed that would make it attractive enough to earn your vote?
Let's look at the fundamental premise. What has been proposed is top-down, that we give the money to Wall Street and somehow it's going to trickle through the economy and help everyone. Well, what I propose and what others are interested in is bottom-up. The essential problem in our economy is the fact that millions of homeowners can't pay their mortgages. That's what's causing a liquidity problem to the extent one exists. And so we ought to be addressing helping the homeowners, create a new home owners loan corporation like they had in the post-Depression era, do something to make sure that the government can buy a controlling interest in these mortgage security pools so that we can work out the problems for millions of homeowners. That's the way you get money moving in the economy again. Strengthen the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation so that people can have a broader area of their deposits protected, and also strengthen a Pension Benefit Guarantee Corporation. I mean, I'm a Democrat. I believe in this idea of making sure that the great mass of people get some help. This plan is immoral, Rachel. This plan is a disgrace. It bails out people in Wall Street who have speculated and who would drive this economy into the ground unless we have some controls on them at both the Fed and the Securities and Exchange Commission.
Are you confident that if there was massive aid to homeowners, if, as you say, the liquidity problem could be solved by helping Americans who can't pay their mortgages, which after all is the house of cards on which all of these Wall Street castles have been built, are you confident that helping homeowners, doing a sort of bottom-up plan like you're describing, would ultimately save enough of the financial institutions that are at risk right now that we would be left with anything looking like a private financial sector?
Well, you have to understand that the private financial sector exists in synergy with the mass of Americans. I mean, Roosevelt understood that when he put forth the New Deal. I mean, what I'm proposing is really a page out of classic New Deal economics. You know, help the many, and in that way you also help the few. But what's happening is this bailout proposal helps the few at the expense of the many. It drives us deeper into debt. It doesn't solve the problem. And all it does is bail out some investors and help encourage speculation. If the government starts using the taxpayers' money to insure against risk, well, then all you're going to have is speculation.
Some progressive Democrats today, Congressman, lined up behind a proposal by Pete DeFazio of Oregon and others to take a whole different approach to this crisis than has been taken thus far, to do a lot of the things that you're talking about, to partially restore some government regulations on Wall Street right now rather than putting off that issue until later. Are you supporting that idea?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Pete DeFazio is talking about a 0.25% tax on stock transactions that would raise about $100 billion a year. And that would be a way for Wall Street to bail out Wall Street. I think that's very sound. There are other economists who suggest that maybe you have companies that forego dividends. Wall Street bailing out Wall Street. We cannot ask the American people who are having trouble saving their homes that they should bail out Wall Street. This bailout will cost every American, if you use the compounded interest using the $700 billion and what it'll actually cost, it'll cost every American about $6,900, each man, woman, and child. I mean, this is wrong. It is wrong. Democrats should not be proposing a bailout of the stock market. And frankly, I salute the Republicans who understood that Wall Street ought to be able to fix its own problems, and a bailout would constitute a violation of every free market principle that any Republican ever believed in.
One last very quick question on that point specifically, Congressman. Do you see that there could be any overlap between the Republicans who rejected the bailout plan and the Democrats who rejected the bailout plan in terms of coming up with a third way forward?
Absolutely. That's what we have to do. I mean, we need a bipartisan approach to come up with a plan, but it can't be a bipartisan approach that's dictated by Wall Street, and for that matter, it's not going to be. Again, I thank the Republicans for standing up on this, because it wasn't easy to stand up to the White House and to their leadership. But you know what? Republicans and Democrats working together can come up with a plan that will protect the economy, protect the interests of the American people, and avoid Wall Street taking the American people for another ride.
Congressman Dennis Kucinich, Democrat of Ohio, reaching across the aisle here. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Rachel.
It's just not going well for John McCain's pick for vice president. Sarah Palin is chasing conservatives away,